ready to climb inside the mind of a rock warrior.
We're going deep on Arno Ilgner's The Rock Warrior's Way.
It's a guide to mental training for climbers.
But even if you've never touched a rock face,
Stick with us.
these insights, they can help you tackle any challenge.
Ilgner pulls inspiration from all over,
Warrior literature, Carlos Castaneda.
and a lot from his own climbing.
He takes the warrior idea but flips it.
It's not about aggression, right?
Right. It's self-mastery.
Achieving peak performance.
Your mental discipline.
Okay, so picture this.
You're hundreds of feet up,
Heart's pounding.
that inner critic, screaming doubts,
Ilgner gives you the tools to silence that.
and tap into the mental strength to keep going up.
He starts by breaking down a big enemy
The ego,
in climbing. Easy to tie your worth to what you've done.
conquering a tough route.
Doing better than others.
But Ilgner says that's a path to getting stuck.
And unhappy.
His first principle, becoming conscious.
It's all about seeing those thought patterns holding you back.
The ones that can sabotage what you can do.
He's got this story about coming back from Korea,
He was in the army there,
and he had this huge sense of self-importance.
which, well, it kind of came out in road rage.
He went off on another driver.
Turned out that driver was a Vietnam vet.
Ooh.
Shows how comparing yourself can backfire.
Ilgner was playing this ego game without even realizing it.
And it led to embarrassment.
Think about those times when, I don't know, you felt superior,
Maybe at work or with a hobby.
and it blew up.
Ilgner's story just shows how sneaky the ego can be.
So how do we get out of this mental trap?
Ilgner says cultivate the witness position.
Stepping back from the mental chatter.
And just watching your thoughts, your habits.
Feels like you're watching somebody else.
This distance, it lets you really examine your mental patterns.
Are you actually focused on learning, growing?
Or are you caught up comparing yourself?
Stuck on past mistakes.
Ilgner calls out two main culprits, power sinks and power leaks.
Power sinks are like energy black holes.
Things like self-importance, clinging to the past.
He talks about putting up first ascents on Whiteside's Mountain.
He was holding on to that, using it to feel better than other
A
climbers.
sneaky kind of ego boost.
Instead of that energy pushing you forward,
It gets trapped.
maintaining this image of yourself that doesn't change.
And then there are the power leaks.
Negative self-talk, reacting without thinking, wishful thinking,
That little voice saying, I'm too tired.
or I'll never get this move.
Imagine you're psyched for a new climb.
And that voice pops up.
You're going to fall right there.
That's a power leak, draining you before you even start.
Or think about how clinging to past experiences can mess you up.
Say you had a bad time with footwork on a climb,
That memory can create this mental block.
making you stumble on similar moves later.
It's like we're setting ourselves up to fail.
Based on old limits, not our potential?
Right.
Exactly. That's mental energy wasted.
Energy that could be used to solve problems right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the fix for these power leaks?
Awareness is key. Noticing them is the first step to breaking free.
Ilgner suggests things like delaying your reactions.
You feel that urge to grab a quick draw, yell, take.
Pause. Just for a second.
See that impulse? And choose something different.
Taking back control.
Proving to yourself that you have options.
This becoming conscious thing.
It's rewiring those automatic reactions.
And this goes way beyond climbing, don't you think?
It does. How often are we stuck in those self-sabotage loops?
Without even knowing it.
It's huge for being more mindful in life, right?
Totally. By seeing these patterns.
We can start making choices that actually help us reach our goals.
So we've unmasked those sneaky ego traps.
Now let's climb up to Ilgner's second principle.
Life is subtle.
He digs into how tiny details can massively impact your climbing.
He talks about this deep link between body and mind.
He calls it the body mind.
Think about your breathing when you're anxious.
Or how you tense up on a hard move.
Those little physical things, they can create huge mental blocks.
And here's the thing.
Your body remembers these bad patterns.
They become schemas that hold you back.
I remember this one time at a clipping stance. I was freaking out about making the clip, but the second I clipped in, boom, better handhold appeared. Foothold felt solid. My whole body just relaxed.
Good stance.
Yeah, but my mental state totally changed how I interacted with it.
Classic example of the body mind at work.
So what can we do about it?
Ilgner suggests things like soft eyes focus.
And breathing deliberately.
To stay grounded even when things get intense.
Soft eyes focus. Tell me more about that.
It's about having a wider field of vision.
When you're getting ready and when you're climbing.
Instead of staring at one hold or freaking out about falling,
And taking in the whole scene.
it helps you stay relaxed, open.
And keeps those distracting thoughts away when you need to be present.
Right.
It's like not getting tunnel vision when you're driving. You don't just focus on one spot. You see the whole road.
Exactly. And deliberate breathing. It's not just about oxygen. It's a way to control your nervous system, to anchor yourself in the moment. When those fight or flight instincts kick in,
Ilgner talks about fully exhaling.
using those abdominal muscles.
Like hitting reset for your mind and body.
He also gets into mental posture.
Which is?
Having an open mind, focusing on the process, not just the result.
And using language that empowers you. So instead of, I can't do this.
It's what can I do to make this work?
That little language tweak can change how you see the challenge.
It's about choosing words that lift you up, not hold you back.
By mastering these small things,
Yeah.
breath, focus, posture.
We can build this stronger connection between our mind and body.
Ready to take on those climbing obstacles.
This life is subtle principle. It reminds us to pay attention to those little cues.
They can make all the difference.
We've peeled back the layers of the ego.
Explore the body-mind.
But how do we face challenges head on?
That brings us to Ilgner's third principle, accepting responsibility.
This is where things get really interesting. It's about taking ownership of our actions, our choices, even our fears. Ilgner doesn't mess around. He says blame, denial, excuses, they're all ego tracks.
They make you feel powerless.
Stuck.
He tells this crazy story about pushing it too far on Stone Mountain.
It's known for these long climbs with no protection.
He was feeling cocky, ignoring the real dangers. Almost took a bad fall.
Whoa.
Have you ever been there? Like maybe at work or in your personal life?
Downplay the risks and almost paid for it.
That close call forced him to see the difference.
Between actual danger
And the fears we make up in our heads.
Sometimes the biggest obstacles are our own thoughts.
Right. His solution. Radical honesty. It's about examining your motives, your actions, but without judging yourself.
Just seeing things clearly.
It's not about beating yourself up. It's about being real with yourself.
Asking the tough questions.
Why am I backing off from this move?
What's the real reason I'm not pushing harder?
He gives examples of things we all do.
Blaming your belayer when you fall.
Making excuses about being out of shape.
I've definitely done that.
Me too.
It's all dodging responsibility. And it stops us from learning and growing.
It's like that saying, if you're always pointing fingers, you'll never learn.
Ilgner wants us to face reality. He says, life is difficult.
Okay.
Once we accept that difficulty is normal,
Natural.
we stop being offended or scared when we hit a struggle.
Accepting difficulty is part of life.
Yeah.
That's a big idea. How does that actually work day to day?
By seeing things as they are, we take back our power.
Instead of wishing things were different?
We focus on what we can actually control.
So we've taken apart the ego. We've mastered the body-mind, embraced honesty.
What's next on this journey?
It's a move that might seem counterintuitive when you're trying to reach your peak. Giving.
Giving.
It sounds strange, right? When you're pushing yourself to the limit.
Explain how giving actually helps you climb harder.
It's about shifting your focus.
Yeah.
From what you're missing to what you can contribute.
Ilgner contrasts the receiving mindset
Waiting for the perfect conditions, more strength, whatever.
with the power of being grateful for what you already have.
It's a subtle shift.
But it's huge. Instead of complaining, I wish I had stronger fingers,
It's about appreciating that tiny foothold.
that bomber piece of protection.
Even the challenge itself.
Almost like finding the good, even when things are hard.
Ilgner says this shift to giving creates room to believe. It opens up possibilities beyond the limits we set for ourselves.
He talks about this time he felt intimidated by the diamond on Long's Peak.
It's this massive, scary alpine wall, right?
Yeah.
He and his partner were psyched to climb it.
Until they saw it up close.
They got scared, retreated, went back to Boulder.
Frozen by fear of the unknown.
Have you ever faced something so overwhelming that you backed off at first?
But then something changed. They went back to the diamond. This time, they focused on what made them love climbing.
The beauty of the place.
Yeah.
The adventure. That change in mindset gave them the push to engage with the challenge, and they ended up conquering the route.
That's the power of giving. It's not about ignoring the difficulty. It's about finding gratitude for the chance to test your limits.
So we've prepared ourselves mentally, emotionally. We've embraced this giving attitude.
Now comes the key moment. Stepping into the unknown.
Ilgner calls this choices.
It's the bridge between getting ready and taking action, making a real commitment.
Knowing that you might succeed or fail.
Ilgner says it's crucial to be clear about your goal.
Are you going for a perfect ascent? Or are you just trying the moves, getting comfortable with falling?
He warns against goals that are too rigid or too vague. We need to find that balance.
Pushing ourselves without being reckless.
And then there's this idea of unbending intent.
It's not just trying a move half-heartedly.
It's putting all your energy into it no matter what happens.
To show this, Ilgner uses a visual model. The bullet.
Imagine a target with two circles, one inside the other.
Okay.
The inner circle is your comfort zone, what you know you can do.
Got it.
The outer circle, that's the risk zone, where things are unfamiliar.
And what's between the two circles?
That's the resistance barrier. It's that feeling of fear, doubt, hesitation.
We all get it when we're pushing our limits.
The goal is to make that inner circle bigger, push past the resistance, and step into the risk zone.
But how do we get over that resistance, that fear of the unknown?
Ilgner says we tap into what he calls the love force.
That desire for growth, for challenge.
And we overcome the phantom fears force that keeps us stuck in our comfort zone.
He actually puts all 7 Rock Warrior processes onto the bullet. He calls it the laser beam.
The laser beam represents your focused attention.
Each principle.
Becoming conscious, life is subtle, accepting responsibility, giving, choices.
And the 2 we'll get to soon.
Listening and the journey.
They all work together.
To concentrate your mental energy, to help you break through those barriers.
Like we're taking all that mental prep and turning it into this powerful force.
A laser cutting through steel.
This focused intention. It's essential when we enter that risk zone and face the unknown. But there's more. We've committed to action. We're facing the challenge head on. How do we keep that focus, that clarity, when things get really intense?
That's where the next 2 principles come in.
Listening and the journey.
So we've got listening and the journey. Where do we even begin?
Okay, we've tapped into that love force, focused our laser beam, and now we're at listening. What's it even mean when it comes to climbing or just dealing with tough stuff?
It's about staying present and open as you climb, letting your intuition lead the way. It's like quieting that inner critic that's always judging.
Trusting the process.
And being open to solutions you might not expect.
Ilgner really stresses turning off that conscious mind. He says, intuition whispers to you between your conscious thoughts. Listen to those subtle thoughts and feelings just below the level of your consciousness. It's like tuning into a different channel, one that's usually buried under all the mental noise. Any tips for quieting the mind and tapping into that intuition?
Meditation can help. But Ilgner's point is that intuition isn't some mystical thing. It's practical wisdom we often ignore. It comes from our subconscious, using all those experiences and insights we've gathered.
He tells this great story about climbing Sword of Damocles. It's got this notorious roof section.
Tough one.
He kept falling at the same spot. His mind was telling him it was impossible. But on his last try, he decided to just go for it. Shut off those quitting thoughts. And guess what?
What happened?
He found a new sequence, totally intuitively, and finished the pitch.
Proves how silencing that inner critic can unlock hidden potential.
Ilgner also talks about open expectation. It's about not getting stuck on what you think the climb will be like, or what the outcome will be.
So instead of assuming it'll be a nightmare,
You approach it with curiosity, letting yourself be surprised by what you discover.
that openness helps you stay receptive to new information, even when things are hard.
Ilgner tells another story about this brutal, long hike. All he could think about was reaching the end. He was feeling every bit of pain and discomfort. Then it hit him. The hike would be over soon. Just a memory. So he decided to be present in that moment. Really experience the pain, the tiredness, the beauty around him.
By changing his perspective, he found something unexpected in something that seemed purely awful. It shows that even discomfort can teach us things and help us grow.
And that leads us to the final principle, the journey. It's about seeing the entire climb as a learning experience, finding peace in the midst of that risk zone, breaking the habit of always wanting to escape discomfort. But how do you actually find comfort when things are uncomfortable?
It starts with realizing that the goal isn't just getting to the top. It's about experiencing every part of the climb. So instead of obsessing about the destination, you focus on the next move, the feel of each hold, the rhythm of your breath. And if your mind starts to drift to doubts or distractions, gently bring it back to the present moment.
Ilgner brings back that laser beam visualization. It's about using all the Rock Warrior principles and focusing them into this powerful force that can cut through mental barriers and help you reach your full potential.
That laser beam of focused attention keeps you present, adaptable, and responsive throughout the entire climb or any challenge you face.
So to wrap up, the 7 core principles of the Rock Warrior's Way. Becoming conscious, life is subtle, accepting responsibility, giving, choices, listening, and the journey. It's like a mental toolkit for tackling anything, whether it's on the rock or in everyday life. This has been awesome. For our listeners who are fired up to try these principles, what are some of the exercises Ilgner gives in his book?
He offers a whole bunch of techniques: meditation, visualization, breathing exercises, even practicing falling on purpose. He talks about impeccable use of attention, something we could all use more of, whether you're facing a tough climb, a deadline at work, or whatever life throws at you.
And that brings us to our 10-point summary of Ilgner's main ideas, a roadmap for our listeners to start their own self-mastery journeys.
Awesome. Hit us with it.
1. Becoming conscious. Recognize and own those sneaky thoughts that are holding you back. 2. Life is subtle. Master the little things, your breath, focus, and posture, to create a powerful mind-body connection. 3. Accepting responsibility. Own your actions and choices to gain control and stop blaming others. 4. Giving. Shift your focus to gratitude and what you can contribute to the challenge. 5. Choices. Commit to action, knowing you might succeed or fail. 6. Listening. Quiet your mind and trust the process. Let your intuition be your guide. 7. The journey. Embrace the whole process as a learning experience. Find comfort in the midst of difficulty. 8. The bullet. Visualize your comfort zone and expand it by pushing past your limits into the risk zone. 9. The laser beam. Focus your attention like a laser to break through mental barriers and unlock your potential. 10. Apply it. These principles aren't just for climbing. Use them in any area of life where you're facing challenges and want to grow. So as you navigate the ups and downs of your own life journey, think about how these principles apply to you. How can you become more aware of your limiting beliefs? How can you master the connection between your mind and body? How can you embrace radical honesty and cultivate a mindset of giving? How can you develop that laser beam of focus to break through obstacles and achieve your full potential? Remember, the greatest rewards come from the journey itself. Keep exploring, keep learning, keep diving deep.